All right, I'm going to put this up here so it's ready to go. First of all, thank you everybody for showing up. It is Friday morning. It was after, this is one of the last sessions of the whole day. We've got an excellent panel here for you. I'm going to go over that in a second. My name is Catherine Ness. I'm with Go Strategies. Christy Pimpin with Redbud Consulting.
Yes, it's
Pimpin.
Pimpin.
Big Pimpin' Mama. Yeah, Ness, isn't it? Yeah. And then Donna Corlew, who's with C Connect. We're all consultants here. So we are going to zip through this really fast. You have this great handout in front of you that provides information about us. It's like in your seat back pocket. And then on the inside, it really gives a little more about the panel who's sitting up here and is really excited to share with you all about federal teaming from small and large perspective. So the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to work with here. So that's us. And then, so this is the best panel ever. I'm glad you guys made it here because now you have the best panel ever. Starting with Beth Harris. Yay, Beth. Beth Harris is with United Consultants. And then Chris Darling. Chris. Yay, Chris. He is with Turner. Also, Mike McGahey. Yay, Chris. He's with Pond. You can cheer. It's okay. Sally Riker. There we go. Yes, with Low Engineers. And then Nancy Ursary with HNTB. So again, we have a great representation of large and small to give you quite a diverse opinion here. Okay, next. You guys maybe have seen these slides before. And so you can
decided not to get.
Yeah, and no, safety first, right? So no tripping. Exit in the back there. Second one, silence your cell phone. Yeah. Silence your cell phones, put them on stun, whatever you want to do. Next. Thank you to our sponsors. If it wasn't for our sponsors, we would not be able to have this awesome conference. All right, next one. You get PDH credits for this, woohoo! And also we're going to upload everything to the conference thing. We will be, actually Christy will be doing the transcribing of all of the comments that were made from the panel, and then we're going to try and get some stuff from you. We have a marathon's worth of information that we're going to squeeze into a sprint. So that's why I'm talking fast. Hopefully you can listen fast. So rules and guidelines. Let's go to the next one here. Oh, there's the feedback. Let's go back to the feedback. Okay. Questions will be, we want your input at this time. We're not going to wait for the end. So for those of you in the back, we have seats up front here. We actually have handouts if you want to come on up. Please. We don't bite.
This is an active session.
Yeah, we need you. We need you. We need you. Okay, so rules and guidelines for this session. This is a brainstorming, no rules, well, the rules apply. Basically, there's no dumb question or no dumb idea. You want to move forward with everything. We're capturing and sorting later. Christy is going to be doing that. And then also, all perspectives are equal. They do, they count equally. So how this came about, first of all, how many of you in this room are with a small business? Oh, nice. And how many are with a large business? And how many don't know their business? No. Okay. So
well, maybe how many are government?
Government?
Government, good. Okay. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah,
we
the
need
uniform.
your input too. Sorry.
Absolutely. Because what this is a convergence of small businesses with large businesses. It started out with a brainstorming with us that said, hey, how can we do this better to provide better teams to the federal agencies? So how do we work through some of these bumps? You guys have all had these bumps before. So what we're going to do, what we did is we sent out to our network some questions, 12 questions that we're going to go over here today. And those 12 questions are, how do we team better? How do we move forward with making a better team, starting with the proposal, starting with the procurement process, and it's going to be a better team for them, getting through some of those bumps. So the diverse group that we went through, obviously, we've got some great AEC people here, also large, medium, and small, and some mega firms as well. So it's really 150 people responded. It was great. And the breakup of the roles and responsibilities, majority were marketing people that responded, and then primes versus subs. But again, what it gives us is a better way of answering to the federal procurement process. So let me see what else we have here. Sorry, I made notes. Also in front of you, besides the handout about the panel, is a sheet. We want as many comments as we can get. Thank you, Christy. She's holding up. If you're too shy and don't want to speak, I'll bring around the microphone. I'll be monitoring. Donna's going to be our ringmaster and kind of working with these guys. But we would like to get your comments. If you want to write them down, we'll collect at the end of the session, put your name, address, and or email address on there. We'll collect them and add them into the document. So enough about me and enough about all this other good stuff. Donna?
So now we're going to jump into the survey, and this is where the fun part starts. So we really started with 12 questions when we sent these out and had responses back, as Catherine said, from a very diverse group of individuals that are related, actually are responsible for teaming for their firms, whether they're a small firm, large firm, public, private, whatever. So the first question was, when do we position? You know, the idea of, do you wait for the RFP to come out or do you position in advance? What we asked were, does it matter if the size of the project, of whether you position or not? What we found was, for even the smaller projects, that's 250 to 500,000 range projects, even 70% of teams were formed before the RFP hits the streets. Particularly for the larger projects, I mean, those big dollar volumes, when you expect that positioning to happen, it was happening on a regular basis, a little bit more than even for the small ones. But what we found was large and small firms were already positioning. So I want to ask our panel, how do you guys look at when do you position, and is there a point where you do or you don't? I'm going to start with Chris.
Good morning, everyone. As the survey says, and as is probably intuitive to most everyone in the room, is start absolutely as early as you can, and the larger the project, you need to start even earlier. Starting a year or 2 years in front of procurement is not unusual for large procurements. So you'd ask, well, why would I do that? Just seems like an awful lot of time investment. Well, a couple of reasons. One is the good teams, and you'll know if you've lost as many pursuits as I have, the good teams form really early, and you'll get boxed out. So the folks who are in the know about a particular procurement, well, they're in the know, they know enough to form early, and they know who the good participants are. So you want to work to get yourself in that club. And in addition, there are times where you could lose a team member. So if you lose a team member and it's 6 months before the RFP comes out, all right, crisis averted, I can replace that team member. If the RFP is out or nearly out and you're in the middle of a procurement and you lose it, you dump a team member, now that's a crisis. The other thing to think about is developing winning strategies, right? So this isn't all about just submitting whatever. This is about thinking creatively about, how am I going to win this thing? And if you have good teams and you build good teamwork early, you can use that brain power to advance your position. You can ask questions. The RFP's not out. You can actually ask contracting people. So you have a lot of time to make an impact. So Don, I would say as early as possible, given your resources of your firms.
Okay. Sally,
Yeah,
you want to give us a small side?
Sure, yeah. So as a small business, I echo everything Chris just said. But, we also have to we like to team as early as possible. So if you see it on the Fed Biz Ops, typically our go, no-go says no-go, our process. But in certain situations, if large businesses call us for one of our services, like we perform a survey, we will, depending on the company and our relationship, we will say yes at the last minute. So it varies, but in order to really be successful and have that winning strategy, we team early, we go to the industry days, we stay involved with, SAME is a great place to form relationships and to stay on top of it. So it's as early as possible, yes.
Okay. Any comments from you guys? We'll take one or two very quickly. I mean, anything you've experienced or?
I just wanted to ask, what does it look like when you team early like that, as far as activities happening? Can you kind of paint a picture of what it looks like for the small business? Because so many times they just ask for information. It's like throw it over the fence and things like that. How do y'all interact, and it's a good teaming relationship?
I'll start and say briefly, if it feels like that, you're probably on the wrong team, because the good winning teams will be engaging. You'll be having probably monthly meetings, but maybe weekly calls. You'll each be tasked probably with some piece of research to bring back to the team, some information that's required in different areas of the procurement based upon your individual expertise. You'll be searching for the best team members, or you'll be sifting through a matrix of the best past performance. So if you're speaking and there's just a dark echo, you're probably on the wrong team.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, many times when we, in a very early response, we're usually working together even with that company or that teaming partner. So then when you get to the matrix, you can kind of check off the various projects that you have done together. And that's very helpful when they're looking at your package.
Okay, I think we've got one more comment over here.
With a lot of these federal contracts, we're aware that they come out and they get delayed and delayed and delayed. So what would you give an advice for when acquisitions happen, whether it's a large teaming partner that gets acquired or a small teaming partner that gets acquired?
Chris is
Just
smiling.
patience. I don't know. I don't know how else to say it, because there's really nothing you can do about it. But we try and be vigorous. So if we're going to go after something, we want the entire universe to know we're going after this. We intend to win this. And patience and perseverance. You just got to stay on it. It's tough sometimes because the resources get really thin and there's a lot of other distractions, if you will. But for the really important procurements, I would just patience and perseverance and just let the world know we're not going away. We're on this.
Okay. We're going to move on to question 2. As Catherine said, we're on a sprint here. This is normally an hour-and-a-half session, and we're cramming. So question 2 is, why do we team? Why do you go, besides it's like the best thing to do ever, but why do we team? 100% of the respondents ranked history with a project or client as the most important factor when they looked at who to team with. Second to that was a proven track record and reliability are reasonable to expect. We thought it interesting in the results when we got those, when we looked at them, really that idea of your certifications or your degrees, with some exceptions. We realize there are certain specialty certifications that you have to have to get a good job, but are generally not factors of concern. Most everybody saw that. You have licensed engineers. That's a given. You are certified to do business in a particular state. That's a given. So it really was, that's not the factors that people look at when they try to decide who to team with. It's more about what do you know about the project and what do you know about the client. So panel, what do you think? Beth, you want to give us an insight?
Well, as a small business, we can't go it alone, so we have to team. And with federal procurements, they need us. I mean, they're looking for small teaming partners all the time. But in a niche situation, if we have a professional technical person that has a niche certification, let's say in my firm, a geotech firm, we have a certified industrial hygienist in our environmental side. That CIH is an unusual thing for a small business to have maybe, and that would be attractive to a prime to include us on their team just to get that certification on their team.
Okay. Mike, you want to give us the
Certainly.
rebuttal to that? No.
I don't know if I'll rebut it, but good morning. There's one thing that really sets apart small business when it comes to teaming, and it's the fact that you're a small business. Large businesses are looking for partners and small businesses that can perform and provide that supplemental service that strengthens that team and gives you a better chance of winning, better chance of success. But really the differentiating factor is, there are small business requirements, and there are a lot of very talented small businesses out there. And it's a very competitive environment. And really, the importance of why we're teaming is we're looking for somebody that can perform, somebody who can execute the work, and somebody we can form a long-term relationship with. That won't take a large part of our business away, but sharing the market sector is part of what we do. And that makes us a stronger team. And that's really the big differentiating factor for us.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, the only thing, I'll chime in, it's interesting because sometimes with where we are as a business, sometimes we will prime certain IDIQs, and sometimes we'll be the sub with different services. And so, a lot of times if we're priming it, we'll add capacity to our team, we'll add various capabilities, so that's super important. But as a sub, really you got to bring the A game. You got to be the expert. You have to have a proven track record, do a great job. But a lot of times it's the relationship that we have established with the particular client is the reason why a large business will seek us out. They say, oh, we know that you've done great work, and we know that you've got a great relationship. So.
Okay. We'll move on to question 3, which was, what is the value of business development? Whether you're a small firm whether you're a large firm, whether you're a prime or a sub, what is the value of you and your firm doing that advanced business development? Number one, above all else, at 80% of the respondents ranked client relationships as the most valued reason to team. If a small business has the relationships with the agency or the owner, that makes you golden, because then you're a known quantity and a known quantity to the owner. It makes the sell easier. The second one was the history of working with the client was also highly valued. And last but not least was the value, understanding the client and the project. It was still important, but they were also, the large firms that responded said, we'll give you a chance to learn if you've not worked with that client before. That's not the overwhelming reason, but it is one of the factors. So those were the top three in order of why a business or why a firm should be doing business development in advance. So I'm going to turn to my panelists and ask guidelines on why business development matters. Nancy, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. We're a large firm, and we have a policy in our company that we target clients. We target owners, and we try to get to know them as deeply and ingrained as we possibly can. So when I think about small businesses, many of you, although these three items are very focused on what you know about the owner or the project, I suggest to you as well that you get to know us, because you're going to be subcontracted to us. So do your research and find the companies that do the kind of work that you want to support. Develop a relationship with us and get to know how we procure, or how we go about dealing with you, how we go about selling ourselves to a client, to an owner, and then we end up working together that way, and it makes it much easier for you to respond when we have an opportunity that we want to go after.
And I'm going to interject here, and I will add, as a consultant that works with both large and small firms on pursuits, one of the things we've learned early on is that as the pursuit goes, as the proposal goes, so goes the project. If the team does not get along or doesn't jive, or if there are issues during that pursuit or proposal process, guess what that just shows to the owner? That's a precursor to what could go wrong during the project. So as much as you can know each other before you start down that path, I think your owners will appreciate that as well.
Now, I'm just going to add one more thing. Several of us were at a senior marketing business development function conference a couple of weeks ago, and one of the speakers there said something that resonated with me even as a large business. He said, so many of us go out and we say, here's all the stuff I have, who wants it? Who wants to buy my stuff? And that doesn't control your market. If instead you look at what you're really good at, what you have to offer, and you go find a firm that needs that, or here's what I can do, how can I help you solve a problem that you have? So many of you are small businesses, you know we work in the public sector, we need small businesses to meet those goals, but what kinds of small businesses do we need to support our staff so that we can win the work and give you work? Come at us that way, be proactive and target and focus your efforts on your client. It's good to know the owner and the market, but you're contracted to us.
Yeah. Sally or Beth, one of you want to chime in on that?
I think that was well answered, Nancy.
Okay, moving on. So what's the value of marketing? And here's where we're going to differentiate, easy for you to say on a Friday morning, the difference between business development and marketing. Marketing is really those things that you do to position. It's not necessarily the in front of somebody, but it is the how do you handle social media? How do you do the research? How do you identify what the opportunities are? How do you position yourself a little more? How do you put yourself as an expert? So when we asked about what's the value of marketing, the number one response was a silver bullet. What can you bring to the team that they can't get anywhere else? Closely followed by adherence. At least being a record of adhering to the schedule and following instructions makes for a very highly valuable teaming partner. I've lived on both sides of that street. I've been on the teaming side where I'm the sub and the prime. One of my biggest frustrations as a prime was when you ask subs specifically for information, and guess what? You don't get it. It's also as a sub, then that that allowed me to say, okay, Mr. Prime, I know that this is important to you. You wouldn't ask for me if you didn't need it, so I'm going to give it to you in the format that you need, in the information that you need. And that actually became a differentiator for my firm at the time, because our large partners saw that as an opportunity. We're going to team with them because we know we're going to get what we need. And again, it was the beginning of that relationship and how we work together. Secondly is marketing delivery, a team that delivers that what's asked for and holds to the schedule. It was interesting in the responses, brand awareness, that idea we always talk about, what is our brand in the market? Really, if you didn't have the background, if you didn't have the silver bullets, if you didn't deliver, brand awareness was really a non-factor. And that really kind of surprised us along the way as we were going through this. So panelists, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about why marketing matters, and I guess I'll start with Sally.
Okay, so this is a I love this question. You know, I 100% agree. You have to deliver as a small business, but I think along the way we kind of, low engineers, stumbled into something. How many of you have seen the zebra? The squishy zebras are coming by our booth. So, after Hurricane Katrina hit, we actually painted one of our boats out on Lake Pontchartrain, zebra striped at the time. And then just to be able to see it and recognize it out on the water. And then the surveyor came to us and said, hey, you know, it'd be great to zebra stripe the truck to match the boat. So we did it. We started getting calls in Atlanta, and I said, you know, guys, I was like, you know, we are on the side of roads, we're on bases, we're on all these project sites. Let's do something different and stripe everything that we have. So we have, and we've rebranded. And, you know, even though it was lower on the scoring sheet here, you know, it is something that, you know, if you come to Atlanta, I can't even tell you how many times the conversation starts off, hey, I saw one of your zebra trucks on the side of the road the other day. It's really, really cool. So it's brand awareness. It's really helped our small business. And we've really gotten into it and rebranded all of our corporate literature and our social media and all of our slogans. So it's been a lot of fun for us. Yeah.
Okay. So there is a role for brand, and let's not dismiss that there is a role for brand. It just wasn't from a teaming perspective one of those things that it was the overwhelming response. Nancy, you want to chime in there?
I'm going to go back to what it's like to be in a small firm, because I've been there as well, and being inundated with requests from people to provide information. It's hard to become proactive and to be in front of all of these requests and to stay on top, especially when they're all in different formats. People want different things. My suggestion, based on the value of business development answer, is pick 3 or 4 or 5 firms that you want to work with and figure out what format they typically have, and build your materials, your resumes, so that you can quickly give a resume in that format. I mean, granted, we're looking at SF330s most of the time, but different companies want information in different orders, or they want more information in some cases. You've got a project description that they want in a certain way. Figure out what your clients that you're contracting to want, and build your marketing program to support those clients. They will appreciate it, and it makes your day and your life and your small staff much better at doing what they want to do.
Yeah, let me just jump just real quick. You know, as a small business, I feel like our resources are always so limited. So we have developed like a capability statement, because sometimes people ask for that. We have various forms of quick information that we can send out to people when they're requesting it. So it's already cut and done, and all I need to do is update it with our numbers, usually, you know, or states, licenses, things like that. So it is very helpful, Nancy.
Can I add just a quick maybe alternative view, if you will? So like when we first saw this, I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense. And so in a world where marketing is really everything, you're just inundated all the time, commercials, social media, it's all over the place. But I think the differentiator is, if you observe the things that are heavily marketed, they're faceless products. And for faceless products, marketing is super duper important, because you're never going to associate that with, you know, Sally or Nancy or Mike. It's a faceless product. So I would just, you know, we get asked to advertise a lot. We almost advertise nothing. Now, it's easy to say as a large bit, we're Turner, like everybody else Turner, right? So, so it's easy for me to say, but the truth of the matter is, I would spend my marketing dollars on making sure I'm at things like this, where I'm putting a face with my product. So that's just a little counter view on marketing.
Agreed. Okay, next we're going to talk about what's the value of small business. Now, particularly for the federal market, small business is a given. There are always going to be those small business set-asides or those small business requirements that you have to meet. So this may be a little different or a little bit more direct for you guys. But from the standpoint of what's the value of small business, in the survey, the number one overriding was if you're a small business with the right expertise, you're in. You're just not going to put somebody on the team because they're a small business. I think those days are over. Followed very closely with, and tied for second were the idea of relationships. Small businesses have to network. Those relationships are golden. I think we've already heard that already. And then very closely was reliability. I remember back when I first started in this industry 3 decades ago, that it was one of those things of, we will have to have a small business, but we know we're still going to have to do the work. And I think those days are done. You have a lot of small businesses that are very capable, are extremely reliable, and you look for those partners that can bring value to the table, not just because you have to have them. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to our panel. Beth or Sally, do one of you as a small business kind of want to talk about that?
Well, I think even as a small business, we look to our primes to help mentor us and help us grow a bit. But even as a small business, I'm mentoring other small businesses and even 8A firms, and they look to us for best practices and how do they get better and how do we help them grow. So we're all trying to help each other, and I think at the end of the day, that's really the goal of the small business program, and that's why we have it. So it goes beyond what you know and who you know, although that's very valuable. As a small business, I also try to stand out from my other pack of small businesses. What differentiates my firm, and how can we stand out in a good way and not the bad way? Because the ones who stand out in a bad way, we kind of know that who they are, and the primes probably don't want to team with them. So, and I do that by what do I bring to the table? What relationship do I have with that agency? Do I know the project managers? Has my firm even sent our capability statement? Do they know us? So that helps me present my firm to a prime when we're trying to maybe engage with a new prime. We just have to learn how to differentiate and stand out a little bit.
Yeah, and as a small business, if you don't add value to the team, why be on the team? I mean, that's what I would ask of the large businesses. So, we want to, have a place on the team and bring value. And if we don't want to be part of it. But, at the same time, you have to be responsive. You have to be the expert. You have to be reliable, someone that, the large business can call on and you respond and you're there, especially if there's a challenge on the project, things like that happen. So it's important. And then lastly, I think as, the value of the small business, certainly, we all bring that we're the small business, but, if you're a VOSB, if you're an SDVOSB, if you're a WOSB, these 8A, all these things are important as well.
Yeah, exactly. One of my large firms want to kind of give their quote rebuttal like Mike.
Yeah, real briefly. By the way, I work a lot with Sally and Beth, and if they're starting to bully me, it's real. Right? Just real quick, I just want to turn it
We're
the
your
other.
favorite, right? I just want to get that.
We're going to turn it
Okay.
the other direction here. We talk a lot about, really a sub role to a prime. There's a ton of opportunity out there for small businesses as a prime. And it is a great opportunity for small businesses to really shine and put behind them a large business that can really prop them up with any particular solicitation. And I think a lot of times that gets overshadowed in the big picture of what small businesses are trying to do. And just as an example, with Tulsa coming out with that, we're not going to mention the CBP infrastructure IDIQ. If you look at that, there's $800 million plus there and 620 pluses set aside for small businesses. It's a great opportunity for you guys to start thinking in the other direction as well. And I know some of you do, but I just want to put that out there. There's a world of opportunity.
Okay. So then our next question was related to the idea of multiple teams. If you're a small business, we landed on multiple teams. Anybody ever had that happen? You look up and it's like, oh, we're on more than one team, yay! So when does that happen? Typically, in the responses that we got, it was that the agency knows them and they love that firm. So yeah, you can be on multiple teams with no problem. Second is, we know the project, the small business knows the project, and they've positioned for that. They've worked with the owner, they've worked with the large firm. They've really worked the deal for that. You know, somewhere along the way, again, we go back to that idea of brand awareness. Low on the list of responses was that idea of we have an industry recognized expertise. That's really not how they landed on those multiple teams. You can't rely solely on your brand awareness, is what that comes down to. I will say, from my standpoint, again, having been on both sides of that conversation, is the idea of when does it make sense as a small business to go exclusive, and we'll talk about exclusivity in a minute, but then also when does it, for the services that we provide, can I really go exclusive? So the idea of being on multiple teams, if the owner loves us, why not? I mean, that's a win-win for us. But how do you handle that? And that's a whole nother question. So then I'm going to turn to our panelists and say, okay, you've landed on multiple teams, or you have team members who have landed on multiple teams. How do you handle that, or how do you view that? So I'm going to start with Sally.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, so, you know, this happens to us a lot with a lot of our services because we do have, you know, we are the small business, and, you know, with certain clients, you know, we do have a fantastic reputation when there's an IDIQ that's, let's say, come out, or if I know of an IDIQ coming out, you know, we will position way ahead of time. And actually, I will do a spreadsheet to make sure that I call and I talk to every firm, and I make sure that they understand that we're not exclusive, you know, with this. And if they want us to be exclusive, then that's a whole different story that we'll talk about later. But you know, we position well ahead of time again, and try to get on all the teams. So we don't wait for them to call for us.
Let me ask this question. So in some instances, you may have firms who say, well, I want a different team. So how do you look at the idea of you're on multiple teams? Do you provide the same people? Do you look at, okay, same firm, different people? How do you handle that?
I mean, most of the time, unless there's, like if they specifically have a different need for some person, we do send out the same person for the team. Okay. But a lot of times, different firms will call us and say, hey, you know, can you write this up in a certain way, you know, or we're going at it from this angle. And so we do tailor a lot of our information that we'll send back to the primes, and it's no problem. You know, we're happy to do it in a certain way, whatever they, you know, whatever pitch that they're trying to go for, we will, you know, modify.
And we do the same thing, but I find it interesting, sometimes it's the same RFP and different primes are asking for vastly different things for the same RFP. And as a small business, I'm not going to say, well, firm A over here, you know, I mean, it's like, are they reading the same document? It's crazy. So we'll touch on that a little bit later.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting.
Chris, do you want to talk about it from a large firm perspective when you have team members who land on multiple teams?
Yeah, sure. So, my opinion, our opinion would be this: if you're a small business and you've earned the right to be on multiple teams, it's usually because you've earned the right. You're the go-to firm. You've done the homework. You've done the groundwork required to be on those multiple teams. So this is interactive. So how many folks, by show of hands in the room, are bashful? That's a trick question because you would have never raised your hand if you're bashful, right? But so you just can't be bashful. You can't allow the large firm to, I'll say, bully you, and that's, or trying to drive you, because it's kind of cool to have the go-to firm as the, you know, they're exclusive. Like, man, I really got this going. But it's not always fair, because a lot of effort goes into these RFPs, and to put all that effort in. And as a small business, you don't always control the outcome of the result. I can do a lot of things that are going to make you lose. So I just say, be brave. Don't be, you know, if someone's pushing you to be exclusive, I just would try and work them a little bit to make sure that.
Yeah, I've been called bossy more than once when we have those conversations. So,
Shock face.
So if somebody is on multiple teams, would you prefer to know it up front?
Yes, because some of the stuff we do, especially getting to the design build world, you're developing proprietary information. You're developing a strategy because you've like we talked earlier, you go early and you want to be, you have a strategy, so you can quickly dilute that, your strategies get all over the place.
We often have firms that have said they're on multiple teams sign a non-disclosure agreement with us so that anything that is in our conversation stays with us. It doesn't migrate over, so.
I want to break in just for a second here because we haven't been talking to you guys too much because we are on the sprint thing, but we're doing really well on time. So if you guys have any comments or this is a great topic right here.
Yep.
So thank you. I wanted to make sure that we did bring you into the conversation. Excuse me. So there we go. It's a bashful one right here.
Thank you. So it's a great topic. I take a little bit of different approach to it. Our firm, we're a small firm, AE firm, been around almost 100 years, but we focus really on those relationships. And everything we do is exclusive. We've had it for decades, 50 years relationships. And my thoughts are the relationship with the prime is really important too. And they know that we're not going to whittle it down to a service or a product and just to put that out across the firm. So we are committed to those relationships as much as we are to the clients. And I think that's been well served with the retention rates we've had over the years.
And that's a valid point, is that those relationships are key in these conversations. And I've been in a position where I go in thinking, anybody ever had this happen? I go in and I think we're only on one team. Those are the only people I've had a conversation with. And then you find out after the proposal goes in, you're on other teams. Anybody ever had that happen? I mean, it's amazing how some firms, and I'm not going to name names, nobody that's on the panel, but some firms say, well, we've got their information, we'll just put them in. And then they don't tell us. And then you find out when the client tells you, when the owner tells you. That's not kind of how I want to know.
Or when you win.
When you
find
win,
out you're
yeah.
on the winning team.
Or when you got to have somebody show up for an interview.
That's not a horrible phone call to get, but if if your people are assigned to different projects and you had no idea, then it could be a little bit of a pickle.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Exactly. So, I like the idea of having those relationships with that client, that larger firm, so if there's that trust factor there. And that's really what this is about, are those trust factors. But you can also have those really kind of difficult conversations when you need to as well. Because next time you try to hide something, not so much. Let's go on to the next question. So we're at question 7. So we're exclusive. When would you do that? And we said we were going to get to this. So almost all strictly sub-consultant or mostly sub-consultant firms that responded to the survey never go exclusive. And honestly, think about as a large firm, or even as a small firm, what you're asking a firm to do. Is basically you're saying you're putting all your eggs in one basket, and if it's a commodity, I say commodities, if it's a service that you're going to need, like a survey or a geotech or an environmental, don't put them in that position. But then if they do go exclusive, it's because the prime is an incumbent in high regard with the client. The odds of them winning that contract are going to be huge. That's when a small business will look at going exclusive, according to these results. Secondly, if the prime is well positioned, maybe they're not the incumbent, but they've been working really hard to unseat an incumbent, then they'll go exclusive. So, I'm going to ask the one large and one small to rebut to this. So, Nancy, you want to start us?
We always want someone to be exclusive to us because if we've selected you as a small business, it's because you're the best. And we don't want you sharing your stuff, your expertise with anyone else. However, we recognize that if you have a specialty or a special relationship, that very likely it's not in your best interest to go exclusive. And we understand that. But then we have to change our strategy in our pursuit and how we're going to involve you in the process of getting what you know into the team and the team sharing with you our questions, because even though we may have an NDA out there, things get shared, not intentionally, but they get shared. We've been guilty of that before too. Sometimes we learn something that we probably shouldn't know. But in most cases, I say that just as the gentleman in the back, if you are a firm with integrity, you're going to do what's right for your firm first and what's right for the team second, but you're going to do it professionally.
Yeah.
And we value that in any small business.
So Beth?
Typically, for us as a geotechnical engineering firm, we will go exclusive on design build. That is probably the only time I've only seen us do it. And we feel like we need to be that engaged partner that our prime understands that how loyal we are to this project with them. And we usually are successfully on the winning team most of the time. And one time with HNTB on a DOT project in Atlanta, so that was nice.
So for you guys, let's just really quick show of hands. I mean, do you go exclusive from time to time? Do you make the decision to go exclusive? I'm getting a few hands. Well, somebody, Christy, well, I was going to say, when do you decide to go exclusive?
I have one person. So usually if it's an HNTV or a large firm that wants me to do Okay, so I do public engagement support, and I am a small woman-owned business. And so when a large company comes to me and says, I want you to do this, I am one person. And so I really take that into consideration. I really think about that. However, if I choose not to go exclusive, I do not tell anyone unless they ask. I'll be honest. I work a lot with the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. Small meetings. I mean, it literally takes one night to do a meeting, although it takes months to prepare for that meeting. But basically, I do not tell any firms who else I'm teaming with.
So what's the lesson
So-
learned there?
The guideline is make sure you ask your subconsultants. Talk to them. Are you teaming with anyone else? But also, too, if I am teaming with a large firm, just know if you are working with a small business that is one or two people, they can only handle so much. Their capacity can only handle so much. So it's okay to ask for exclusivity for large projects like that.
Okay. Okay.
Add a comment?
Quickly.
Yes, quickly. The other thing to think about as a small business is, do you, as we've said earlier, put the same person up on every team? Or do you put different people on different teams? And if you put different people on different teams, how do I know that you're giving me your A team? Or am I getting the B or the C team? So make sure that if you are going to be on different teams and you're going to put different people on different teams, that you have equally qualified people that you can offer to the teams that you're on. Because it's not right to throw bait and switch, not right to put a C team guy or gal on one team, and then if you don't win if that's the team that wins, you switch out and put your A team on because the other firm wanted the A guy. So.
To make it to the finish line, we gotta
Okay, we got to
kick
go.
it up a
So question 8. Sorry, I forgot to clip. We're going to talk about design build. Beth kind of alluded to this right off the bat. So design build is becoming a much more effective and much more utilized delivery method. So we asked, when you're building a design build team, what are those factors that you look for? It's hard to see on the slide, but the number one factor or characteristic they looked at was respect for the firms that they were going to team with. Second, very closely behind it was the idea of communication. How do the firms communicate together? We found it interesting that the idea of culture, how the two firms mesh, really came in a distant fourth if you look at it from that perspective. So it's not all about culture, but it is about respect, and it is about communication. So with that, okay, for our panelists, design build, and I know Nancy and Mike both do a lot of design build teaming, so let's let the two of you kind of address kind of your rules on design build teaming.
I guess I'll take this from, we do construction, but we primarily do a lot of A&E vertical design. We have small construction groups. So kind of look at this question in a couple of different ways, but the way I primarily look at it as being a architectural engineering sub to say a small business general contractor, and really finding that relationship and who will I work for, and where can I find some synergy? And what we really look for first and foremost is the ability to communicate, because this business is about communication, being effective. You have to know what you're doing. There's a lot of people that know what they're doing, but it's how you communicate back and forth, are efficient in working through problems and bringing up issues. And then that builds trust. You have communication and trust, you can have successful project, clients, different things such as that. A lot of that comes with, it's not a test that we do, but it's something I do very quickly as I bring up the contract talk, almost sometimes even in the first conversation. We use this contract because, for insurance reasons, we can sign it. And sometimes some contractors have their own contracts, which are fine, but we like to use standard contracts. We still review theirs, and if it works, it works. They can be very onerous, say you have a contract such as that. Well, we find out the stuff that we can't insure and can't live with, and we have a conversation, and sometimes it stops there. And that's kind of a culture thing for us, I think, because if you get down the road and something comes up, you got to go to the contract, which you never want to do. You want to make sure that you understood what you signed. So it really comes down to us, the communication, and then it works its way through with that contract talk we generally have.
Nancy?
I agree with that, and the other thing is, for those of you who have done design build, and those of you who haven't, listen, it's very different. It requires a different approach to pursuing the project, a different approach to teaming, a different approach to delivering. It's fast, it's furious, you don't have all the information up front. We have this discussion in HNTB all the time because most of the work that we do as a company is traditional design planning or design bid build type work. The division I work in is design build, and we have a difficult time getting people who are used to doing traditional design to work in our world. They're used to having all the answers in front of them and having it done, and we don't have that. So it's a very fast-paced, furious type of work. If you are a small business and you want to participate in design build, learn what you can learn before you get on a team. Come to DBIAs, take classes, talk to your owners or your your clients, your design firms or your contractors to find out, how do you do design build? What do you want from us? How does it work? What can we do? How can we learn? And that's going to make it much easier for you to get on the team and for you to succeed.
So just out of curiosity, how many of you in the room are already involved or pursuing actively design build projects? Okay, so a few of you. What are there those in the room that have not but would like to? One. Okay, at least you're honest. So again, think about it, because it is, as Nancy said, it is a different delivery method and a different thought process along the way. We're going to move on to the idea of joint venture teaming, and joint venture is really a contractual equal everybody equal footing, or two partners at least equal footing. So when you look at why would two firms or multiple firms do a joint venture? One, overall, can't win it alone by themselves. Secondly, it's a domination. You're stronger together than you are apart. The client loves us, and us being that capital letter, the idea of those firms together. And last but not least, both position the same. So now I'm going to look at probably Mike and Chris to kind of talk about joint venture and when you guys decide to JV.
Well, those reasons that were up there were all great reasons, and that is why we decided to JV, to really enhance the team, enhance our ability to win certain projects and compete at different levels. Again, thinking back, I work a lot with our protege programs, and we do a lot of joint venturing with that as well, which is a totally different animal. But one thing I do want to point out with the joint venturing, the rules have changed. And just recently, they changed with, you cannot, it's now a FAR regulation, you cannot submit on a joint venture until, without actually having an approved joint venture in SAM. And before that, sometimes that had to be specified within solicitation. Now it's a FAR regulation. And just to complement that, the government has actually increased the timetable for how long it takes you to get registered in SAM. So once you have your joint venture agreement in place, it's going to take you 45 to 60 days for a lot of these traditional ones. Some people could probably do it a little faster, but that's what it's taking. So you need to pre-market. If you're going to joint venture, you need to know it well ahead of time. You need to get out there, get your teammate, and go visit your client with your teammate and present the team. And before you make that client your joint venture partner, make sure, before you make that joint venture partner your partner, make sure the client's okay with that, and maybe there's no skeletons in the closet, that sort of thing. Stuff we do every day.
Yeah. Chris, sorry.
As Mike said, a joint venture, that's sort of the Mount Everest of teaming. You really have to be careful about doing it, because when you're teaming on a regular basis, you're providing your subcontracting, basically your specialty to the team. That's all well and good. You raise it to the level where you're a joint venture partner. Now there's risks that have to be discussed. Mike talked a little bit about contractual arrangements under design build, and you could hear the risk mitigation in his voice. He talked about the contract within 7 seconds of beginning his discussion. Because there's a lot of risk that goes into the thing we do. Most of the design builds are firm fixed price. So as Nancy said, you're fixing a price early. So you and your joint venture on design build, I just say be very careful. It's like getting married. You have to know your partner very well before you are both going hand in hand in a business venture, as opposed to like a subcontracting, a teaming agreement, or if I just do my own stuff really well, I think I'll be okay. So that's sort of the advice I would give.
Okay. Our next question related to the idea of teaming agreements. When do you do them? When do you don't? When you don't? Or do you have to have them at all? Most of the respondents said it was a case-by-case session or decision for them. The second one was good but unenforceable, and there's some that look at that way. There were a very few that said never do you go into the idea of a teaming agreement. So Nancy, I know I'm going to start with you. But talk a little bit about teaming agreements and how HNTB looks at that.
We can't work without one, and when we're teamed with somebody above us, when we're teamed with a contractor or with a major teaming partner, we can't do any pursuit work without having that agreement in place. On the same side, on the opposite side, we can't give you any work without a teaming agreement. A teaming agreement is not a contract, it's a contract, but it's not your MOU, it's not your professional services agreement. It's an agreement that you're going to work together to pursue a project. And we want your commitment to do that. Doesn't mean you may not be exclusive to us, but you are agreeing that you are going to work with us. And just as we've said earlier, there have been times when a firm has flaked out and decided, no, we're not going to go after that, and we've counted on that firm. We've been in the same position several times, talking about contracting, where we agreed early because everyone was moving fast. We signed a teaming agreement without talking about the contract issues first, and got to the point where we could not negotiate terms with our partners. And that's painful when you have to pull out in the middle of a pursuit. It breaks the relationship. So.
I'm going to ask either Mike or Chris, one of the two, to kind of talk about your approach to teaming agreements.
Yeah, well, Nancy's very right. It's commitment. It just shows your commitment, defines your roles. It really kind of shows that you've thought out how you're going to pursue this, and it really, I think, enhances the team. Now, there are times when we do not get a teaming agreement, and a lot of those, and I just recently had one where there's a cultural thing, and we were doing some work with some Hawaiian and even Japanese firms, and just felt that it would seriously offend them if we asked for a teaming agreement or exclusivity and that sort of thing. And we didn't really need it, so we decided to pass on it. But for the most part, we try to get a teaming agreement with everything.
Okay. We had a question out here too that wanted to basically know, what are the essential parts that go into a teaming agreement? Real briefly, because we've got another question to go through. And we got
real quick, it's just it's defining the roles. What role is each group going to play? What is the expectation? So, I don't tell Sally she's going to get all the survey, and then when she comes in, I've hired a bunch of, I've got surveyors internal that I just give all the work to. She needs a certain expectation from me that I'm going to give her a certain amount of work. It's business contract. It's a contract.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to those things that prime consultants do that annoy subs. So, it's the first one that came through, that idea of poor communication. You're on a team, but you feel like you're just throwing something over a wall and you're not really having that conversation. Secondly, for that was schedules or lack thereof. Again, there's nothing worse as a sub-consultant when you get a call that says, hey, we've got a submittal due in 48 hours and I need it today. So again, that idea of schedules. Last minute stuff ranked very highly on that as well. So and this is where I'm going to give the very quick small firm and then large firm rebuttal time. So Beth, as a small firm, what do you think of what really annoys you when dealing with prime consultants, or Mike, as the case may be?
So, and I'm not talking about Mike or Pond here, but all the things that you just said, Donna, but it's about communication again. If the communication is not there and we get a 48-hour request, we're scrambling. My marketing manager isn't a very effective communication person. She will outline in the email spelling out exactly what resumes are attached, what certifications those people have, what projects are here, where we have worked with you in the past on these projects. So we are effectively communicating that out as a small business to our prime. We kind of like to know that you got it. Please, tell us, we received your information. Thank you very much. We normally get that, but sometimes we don't. And in a situation where we might be teaming on 5 different teams, it can get kind of crazy at the last minute if 2 teams come back and say, oh, we forgot you, we forgot to ask for this, it can get very hectic. So communication, clearly communicating in one email, one time what you need is the best way we can respond to you as a prime.
Mike, quickly. 4 words or less, no, I'm kidding.
Sorry.
Kind of, sort of.
No, she's right. It's communication. We need to communicate. I was even thinking more when you're talking that, I know one of the biggest problems that we have is, and it gets pinned. It used to. I think we have a project management system where we try to avoid that. Ours is based on communication. We've said that a lot, and a lot of times, a sub's late on something. Not a lot of times, but if they're late on something, it's automatically thought that, hey, they're just not performing. Well, maybe the project manager didn't inform them when the due date was till a week before or something like that. So it's important that sub also be savvy enough to communicate up, from a standpoint, and be part of the team and the project the entire time. And I think that's probably the most important part of it, be engaged.
Okay. Now we're going to flip the script and say, okay, for those folks that are prime consultants normally, what are those things that subs do that really drive them crazy? And amazingly enough, a lot of the things kind of show up the same. Imagine that. So poor communication still led the way. So as Mike was saying, that idea of their sub-consultants being an active partner, not that passive partner or reactionary partner, be more proactive. But then also the assumptions and the idea of multiple teams. Hey, if you're going to be on multiple teams, just tell us. Yeah, again, as large, you need to be asking that question too. So I'm going to ask Chris, if you will, to give the large firm view of this, and then Beth, if you want to rebut very quickly from a small firm perspective.
Sure. It's okay to be a little bit annoying. As a large prime, we understand the small business, they don't have the resources we have. We can put 10 people on a pursuit, you maybe only could get a half a person. So we understand that. Prime's obligation is to reach back and support the small business, bring them along. They're on the team for a reason. Exploit that reason, make sure they're, I would say this though, just be careful on your commitments, because it's very easy to say, yeah, we'll get that. I'd much rather hear, oh boy, I don't think I can do that, than, yeah, I'll get it, and then not get it. So you just watch your commitments, because it's a pretty straightforward industry. People like direct talk, and most people can handle that.
Beth?
I would say it's external communication and internal communication. So as a business developer, I'm communicating directly with our prime as the point of contact for my firm, but I'm also communicating internally to my marketing team, who is one person, and she is included on all the emails, so she is up on all the communication, and I see when she sends things out, so I know she's doing it, and we're meeting a deadline. Almost always immediately she responds, so we're always ahead of a deadline. And yeah, just
Okay.
tell us what you need if we didn't do it.
Yeah, and my final comment on this before we wrap up is the idea of, I have, as a prime consultant, actually made teaming decisions based on which sub-consultants I know can deliver the materials that I need in the time I need them. There's a consulting firm, I will not name them or their location in my hometown, you can figure out where that is, that I will not put on a team, or if I do, I give them a different due deadline. than everybody else, because I know they'll never get it to me on time otherwise. So that being said, that is the end of our questions. We've kind of run through this. We appreciate you
quickly.
being here.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody. So again, if you have any comments that you want to have added in, would really love to hear what you have to say. Take a few minutes. I'm sorry we didn't get to get your feedback on this. Your input is really, really important because that's how we do this. The other thing is, because we did make this marathon a sprint, if you guys have something at your post you would like to have us come and redo this in the true hour and a half that it's supposed to be and have more feedback, we'd be happy to do that. We're a mobile group. We do like to do things. I'd like to thank our panelists, each and every one of you. A heartfelt thank you. Hopefully you have gained something from, thank you. You have gained something, some knowledge or anything else. You have our contact information. Don't be shy. We already admitted you weren't bashful, so we will be happy to help you out with whatever we can.
And if you have any things that you would like to add to the conversation about each of these questions, add it to the piece of paper that's on the table in front of
Yes.
you, and we'll collect those and
Yes.
compile those into the comments and the guidelines as well. So thank you all very much for coming, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Sorry. You guys, we passed around a form to capture your emails. What we do is we compile all of these guidelines, all this, what the panel has said, but also too, we've done this wonderful panel. This is our 4th time to do this panel across the U.S. And so we have compiled an entire document of guidelines from several different areas of the country, and we would love to share that with you. So make sure you leave me your email. I'm not going to spam you. I'm simply going to send you that document so that you can take it back and say, hey guys, we should probably team like this. Okay? So make sure you